Hello everyone, Beard Reads Books here, and welcome to this week's Saturday book review video. And this week I'm going to be reviewing Back to the Future Part 2. Obviously last week I did a review on Back to the Future Part 1, so here's the follow-up. And this one was written by Craig Shaw Gardner, so those of you that watched last week's review will know that Part 1 was written by George Guype, but Craig Shaw Gardner took over for books 2 and 3. Now, for those of you that don't know anything about Back to the Future Part 2, never seen it or anything like that, where have you been for the last 30 odd years? How can you not know about the Back to the Future franchise? Yeah, so anyway, yeah. Back to the Future Part 2. It's a very interesting story. So it starts off where Back to the Future Part 1 finishes, and Marty and Doc go into the 30 years into the future to 2015. I mean, obviously that's the past now to us, but they travel from 85 to 2015 because basically Marty and Jennifer, they're married, they've got kids, and there's a problem with their kids that Doc Brown wants to help resolve. So he takes Marty into the future to help sort the issue out. And whilst they're in the future, Biff Tannen, a local bully, he's an old man obviously in 2015, he steals the time machine, and he's also got a sports almanac that got the results for all the sports games from 1950 to 2000. Biff travels back to the 55, gives the book to his younger self, travels back to 2015 to drop the sort of time machine off. Doc Brown and Marty McFly, unaware of what's happened, they travel back to 1985, by which time Biff Tannen has had best part of 30 years successfully placing bets on like sports events. He's absolutely filthy stinking rich, and the 1985 that Marty McFly and Doc Brown return to is an alternative in 85 to the one they've lived in. It's a hellhole to them, so they have to sort of stop all this from happening. So what they do is they then travel back to 1955 to basically stop old Biff from 2015 giving the sports almanac to young Biff in 55. And they then have to basically get their hands on the sports almanac and destroy it to prevent young Biff from basically successfully becoming a filthy stinking rich and turning Hell Valley into a hellhole. And which they managed to do sort of by the end of the book. And again, this is very close to closely written to the film. They're sort of very similar. I mean, being a big fan of the films myself, I was a big fan of reading this, and I think it's well written, and I mean, it's a very enjoyable storyline, at least for me. I mean, obviously, sort of some downsides is you don't get the visual impact that you do watching the film, you know, so you don't get the visual impact of seeing them in the future, like 2015. But it's still a good read, and it's quite interesting comparing the 2015 as depicted in the book and the film to what 2015 was actually like for us. So, I mean, obviously any book predicting the future, they're not going to get it completely accurate. So, but I mean, this one, it was quite a nice little interesting sort of like prediction of what 2015 would be like. So there was one slight difference between the book and the film. I didn't like what they did in the book, because in the film, when they go to the future, because McFly's son, he's going to get involved in something illegal and get sent to prison. And they're basically trying to stop Marty McFly Jr. from doing this. And in the film, when Doc Brown's saying to Marty McFly what's going on, he sort of said, "Oh yeah, we've come to stop your son committing a crime and going to prison. But if that happens, you know, it has a real bad knock-on effect." And it's saying that Marty McFly's daughter, was it Marlene? Yeah, Marty McFly's daughter, when the son goes to prison, about a week afterwards, she tries to break him out of prison, and she ends up going to prison herself. But in this book, what happens is, when Doc's saying, "Oh yeah, if your son commits a crime, goes to prison, and your daughter, as a result, suffers depression and commits suicide." I didn't like that particular change. I didn't like the fact that in the book the daughter commits suicide. I thought, I much prefer what happens in the film. The fact that she tries to break her brother out and as a result goes to prison herself. That was a much better scenario for me than the book scenario. So there was some slight changes in the book that I wasn't too keen on. And I mean, one thing I really did like was how they portray sort of the whole cause and effect thing. Yeah, because they, like, as I've said, Biff from 2015 gets a sports almanac and goes back to 1955 to give to his younger self, and his younger self is able to successfully bet on sort of different sports events. So that's the cause. Young Biff's having like successfully winning bets, and you get to see the effect, which is a hellhole of a Hill Valley in 1985, drastically different to the 85 that we come to know and love throughout the book series. So I thought it was quite good how they sort of portrayed that cause and effect, and the consequences of the consequences of time travel when it's used for bad as well as good. And I mean, it's a little bit of a complicated storyline throughout, but it's not too complicated once you've got your head around it and given it a bit of thought. So yeah, like I said, this very enjoyable book. I liked it a lot. As I mentioned in my last book review, sort of the characterizations of Marty and Doc Brown in the Back to the Future 1 book, they're a little bit different to what they were on film. Whereas this one, the characterizations in the book, they're a lot closer to the characters we see in the film. So it was a lot more enjoyable in that sense reading this book. I would say if you love the films, if you're really into the Back to the Future films, this is a good one to have. I definitely recommend you get your hands on a copy, and it's not too pricey. How much did I pay for it? I think it was about £10–11 I paid for this, something like that. So like I said, it's not silly money. It's reasonably priced. There you go, guys. That's my review for Back to the Future Part 2. If you've read the book yourself, feel free to drop me a comment. Let me know what you thought of it. Yeah, definitely. Anyway, I'm going to bring this little review to an end now, guys. Hope you've enjoyed watching. Look forward to seeing you again in next week's book review video. And in the meantime, stay safe and happy reading.